Dr. David Hill.
Well, did you love the morning? Was it great? You know, I just have to say, I just want to say thank you to all of our partners who work with us, not only those who are here today, but those who were not here today. But I want to speak for just a moment to this panel that you just heard from. I know that there's a lot of information that we oftentimes hear where people will challenge the quality of doTERRA, they'll challenge the sustainability of what we do. At times they'll even challenge the methodology that we develop and we progress in within doTERRA. We're not like other companies. We never at any one moment in time said, let's start a company and be like everyone else. By design, we are different. And today, with that panel of experts, you got some more insight into how not just we're different, but we're profoundly different. I want to say for just a moment that I recognize that there is much good that's happening with essential oils that goes far beyond doTERRA's reach. And for that, every single one of us should be very thankful and should be very grateful. But it also should be abundantly clear at this point in time that sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. And so let me say with every fiber of my being and very emphatically, doTERRA, without question, is not just a world leader in essential oils. We're the world leader in defining what quality is and what purity is, and in that we will never, ever deviate. You certainly will hear more from these wonderful individuals as we work with them very closely. They all intimated that, and we're grateful for our association with them. Now, we thought that this morning, a great way to end the morning would be to talk about more essential oils and do a little bit of essential oil education. So let's spend a little bit of time and let's talk about the basics of what we know about essential oils. And let me set the context for this. I want to get back to the basics. If you haven't noticed, if you haven't picked up on this yet, this convention is 100% about essential oils. That is who we are as a company, that is who we will remain as a company, and we're proud to do so. And so let's get back to the basics of what essential oils really are. Now, there are some things that we know about essential oils, and let me preface this just a little bit. First, let me tell you that the chemistry within essential oils is unique. It's dynamic. And in doTERRA, it's particularly dynamic because of the purity that we provide through those essential oils. In its most basic concept, natural pure compounds, like those found in essential oils, are notably different, especially in the biology and human physiology aspect of how they will be used and the benefits that they will provide. Let me also say that I recognize with great interest the fact that we work and within the compromise of our own knowledge and understanding. And I say compromise because we can't possibly understand everything about essential oils individually. But I also want you to feel encouraged and know, and frankly become immovable in what you know and have experienced in doTERRA, and trust your own experience. That is perhaps the most critical and the most validating process that you will participate in individually within the context of doTERRA and essential oils. That having been said, there are things that we know about essential oils, and you've heard me talk about this before. You've heard me say that essential oils are biologically active. You've heard me say that they're active at the surface of the cell and they have specific cell targets. And you've heard me say also that they're selective. Let's talk about what I mean by biological activity. Biological activity could probably be defined in two very distinct ways with essential oils. First, oils are biologically active because they work within the systems and the confines of your own physiology. That means that they have direct interaction with receptors and with enzymes and that's a full part of the process of how and why essential oils create the benefits that we all love to experience and that we enjoy. Essential oils have specific cell targets for the exact same reason, in that they interact with those self-same receptors, and they interact with enzymes and other catalysts that drive physiology within the body. So the fact that essential oils work within that confine is perfectly acceptable and well known in the biology of essential oils and how they function within the body. Now, the other key point with that, and why we say essential oils are biologically active, is because it's reasonable to also assume, because of some of the chemistry that we see in the essential oils, that they work independent of the framework of your body. In other words, it comes under suspect as a phenolic compound like what we see, for example, in oregano. Does that need an enzymatic reaction to have its outcome intended for the surface of the cell? Can it destroy a microbe without any assistance from the body? The answer is yes. Believe that it can. And so we have two very basic and fundamental properties associated with the essential oils that feed into each one of these prospects. And then we also say that the oils are selective. By saying that the oils are selective, it's another way of saying that we have differentiated outcome. Essential oils are differentiated in at least two different ways in how they function within the body. However, the process of how they function remains largely the same. We're beginning to just now understand some of the pathway and some of the interaction of essential oils directly in the body. These are some of the these are some of the receptors that have been identified with essential oils. And there's multiples that we now understand. And if we understand how and what receptors are being interacted with, we have greater understanding of how and what that essential oil will actually produce in terms of an outcome. Now, the other side to that equation, when we say that essential oils are selective, I think it's a unique property of essential oils, and frankly not something we see anywhere else, is that an essential oil on the one hand can be self-sustaining and supportive of good, healthy cell function, but on the other hand, when we have cellular compromise, when we have something that has occurred to damage that cell, the body's own process of apoptosis can be stimulated by that self-same essential oil. And we have several oils that fit into that category. Frankincense fits into that category. Lemongrass fits into that category. The one that we all know and understand would be thyme and clove essential oils fitting into that category. Profound differences exist with the essential oils, and that's why we remain so committed to them. That's why we remain committed to the processes that we have in doTERRA. Here's three things that every single person in this room needs to know and understand about essential oils. It's okay to not understand and to not know all of the intricacies of why essential oils create the benefit that they do, but we do need to understand these three basic principles because it helps you to understand why oils create the benefits they do. First, oils are lipid soluble. Now, lipid soluble molecules in the body, compounds within the body, have some very specific outcomes associated with them. One, if an oil, in this case, is lipid soluble, what we're really saying is that it's easily penetrable through many different membranes or layers within the body. We know that there's barriers in the body. The cell membrane itself is a barrier. The blood-brain barrier is another barrier within the system. The skin is a barrier. We can easily penetrate through those barriers in the body because the essential oils are lipid soluble. When a lipid-soluble molecule, in this case essential oils, enter into the body, you need to understand that that means that that oil can, and many times does, become ubiquitous. It's not isolated to a thing in the body, or a tissue in the body, or a specific target. And in fact, because of the diversity of the chemistry we see, we can have multiples of targets. Lipid solubility is a key factor of essential oils. Not to be in any way overshadowing of the fact that the molecular size and weight of an essential oil is equally important. Here's a way for you to understand why those two work hand in hand one with another. Lipid solubility means that I can penetrate easily through those tissue barriers and planes within the body. It's what gives essential oils that ubiquitous nature. Small molecular size and weight determines the efficiency of how readily it's able to do that. And so when we look at something like the blood-brain barrier, and you hear somebody say something like sesquiterpenes can cross through that barrier, it's not just an issue of solubility. And in fact, it's an issue of affinity and molecular size and weight that we can cross through those barriers. This means that we get full context of the essential oils. It means that it's reasonable for you to expect when you use an essential oil to have the outcomes that you're hoping for and that you're working for. It's not a mystery. I cannot tell you how many opportunities I've had to sit and visit with scientists and with professionals. In fact, I visited with somebody in my office just a week or two ago who very sternly said, let's be honest, this is all just placebo. Yeah, I know. I wanted to boo him too. It didn't seem like that was a very fair thing to say. However, at the end of our conversation, he freely admitted oils are powerful. And that yes, even though we cannot explain how and why they operate in their entire context, we do know that they do. And they do in a way that is different than any other type of chemistry that we see. It is different than pharmacology. It is different than other forms of natural health and approaches. It's unique to the essential oils themselves. And then we've already talked about cell signaling and how that interaction is profound, not just with the cell, but with entire body systems. And so we do have this ubiquitous nature. They are not all-knowing and all-powerful and mysterious. It's chemistry. And your body reacts and responds through chemistry. And so there's a summation of what that really means for you and I when we use essential oils. Essential oils provide benefits even when there's physiologic compromise. Now that is the context of why most of us would want to use an essential oil, but I want to share with you, don't be limited to that context. Don't be limited to the context that they're only value if and when I have some type of a circumstance that would demand that I use them. I alluded yesterday by saying that the greatest value of essential oils is when we learn how to use them on a daily basis. And when we learn to use them in a model of sustaining health, as well as learning to using them in a model of supporting and recovery in that process. Now, let me share with you, everything in the body is directed through chemistry. You know that. Even your emotions that Dr. Szabo spoke with you about, it's all chemistry within your body. That means if we can influence chemistry, then we can create change in chemistry. If we can create change in chemistry, then we can change and even determine outcomes of our own health and physiology. So let me take a few minutes and let me talk with you about the basics of chemistry. So we're going to go into Organic Chemistry 101. So it's unfortunate we're late in the morning, but get out your pens and get out your pencils and let me break this down for you in a way that it begins to make sense. Not so it's some mysterious thing, but you can begin to utilize what you know and expand your opportunity with the essential oils. So let me first talk with you very quickly about hydrocarbons. Now, all essential oils have hydrocarbons, all of them. And the hydrocarbon is just a hydrogen and a carbon atom, and we have multiples of those that are present within the essential oils. And that makes good sense. If you learn to think about essential oils as having this backbone of carbon, this makes sense because what does carbon do? First off, it's non-reactive and it's non-toxic. Secondly, it's very accommodating in the body and it stimulates a lot of really good, healthy processes. It helps to eliminate toxicity. It can absorb microbes. It can do a number of different things in this sustainable approach of what we would want to do on a regular basis with our own health and wellness. And so hydrocarbons is a key and a critical component. Now there's different types of hydrocarbons. One type of hydrocarbon, and you've heard of these before, is a monoterpene. Now, a monoterpene is two 5-carbon chains that are hooked together. And it doesn't really matter. I don't care that you know that there's 10 carbon atoms now that are associated with this carbon chain, as much as it is the outcome that's associated with that. Now remember, monoterpenes are the smallest of the terpenes that we see in essential oils. And so what do monoterpenes do? Keeping in mind, we talked already about lipid solubility, and we talked about molecular size and weight. And one of the things that we said was molecular size and weight determines the efficiency and how fluid those molecules can be through the body, how readily accessible they are. And so here's a list of essential oils that have high amounts of monoterpenes. All essential oils have monoterpenes. Some have very little. Some are mainly monoterpenes, like in the case of grapefruit. Here's how I want you to think of monoterpenes. Monoterpenes are metabolized quickly, and they're highly volatile. Now, in a therapeutic sense, I look at that and I say, that means I have great opportunity for repetitive usage with monoterpenes. Now, I understand that there's always going to be exceptions to some of the things that we talk about, so grab a hold of the principle. Understand the principle that we're introducing to you, which is monoterpenes. Oils with monoterpenes are fast-acting and they're highly volatile. And as you look at some of the oils that we see listed here, that makes perfect sense. One of the reasons why frankincense, I would tell you, is an essential oil that I would recommend for consistent use is because of its availability within the body and because of the broad spectrum of activity that we generally see, the benefits that we can receive from it. To know that that's fast-acting is a good thing. Now, we also have another class of terpenoids, terpenes, and in this case, it's sesquiterpenes. And sesquiterpenes is a little bit larger. There's 15 carbon atoms, 3 5-carbon chains that have been linked together. And sesquiterpenes, although they have some similarities with monoterpenes because they're both carbon-based, so the main difference here is just the size of the chain that we're dealing with. So in this case, size matters, and part of the reason why it matters is because the longer the chain, the slower it is to metabolize. Now, we have things that go beyond sesquiterpenes. Diterpenes, for example. Diterpenes are 20 carbon atoms, so 4 carbon chains that have been hooked or linked together. And diterpenes don't exist very much in any of the oils that we offer. There is a couple, rose and jasmine. Did you like those yesterday, by the way? They're one of the few oils that have diterpenes associated with them. And there's other terpenes that go beyond that, but we generally don't see them in any of the essential oils that we would ever use. So let's talk about oils that have high amounts of sesquiterpenes. They're focused and they're concentrated, different molecules doing different things, but sesquiterpenes. Cedarwood ranks right at the top. Here's the principle. Here's what I want you to gather from this, and this will make sense for you in a few moments of why I want you to hold on to the principle of not, a sesquiterpene is 20 or 15 carbon atoms, or that a sesquiterpene is found in these oils specifically, as much as it is sesquiterpenes have a higher metabolic potential, and they are longer lasting in the body. So we have a longer outcome. Now, both monoterpenes and sesquiterpenes, let's talk about what I mean by metabolic potential. Metabolic potential is the ability of not just the initial activity or function of an essential oil that we've introduced into the body. We also have the ability to have secondary and even tertiary metabolites that are formed. So linalool is a good example as a monoterpenoid alcohol. It's a good example that we begin with linalool, but then we progress and we have other metabolites that begin to develop as it's metabolized in the body. So we can have long-lasting effects, but the longer that carbon chain, the more complex that carbon chain is, the more chemistry that's available, the more potential there is for greater aspects of outcomes in the body. more potential for secondary and tertiary metabolites, slower to metabolize, longer lasting. That's why we like sesquiterpenes. Now, if we progress just a little bit, stay with me for a few minutes here, let's talk about what I would call a functional group. Now, there's a lot of functional groups, and I'm only going to identify some of them associated with the essential oils because it's those that are most prevalent and readily available within the essential oils. This is where you take a backbone, a carbon backbone, either a sesquiterpene or a monoterpene, whichever terpene it is, and you add another compound to it. In this case, it would be an alcohol, and this is a good representation of what linalool would be, a monoterpene with an alcohol attached to it, and now it becomes a terpenoid structure. And the advantage that we have when we add additional chemistry, like we see in essential oils, is that we have the addition of multiple of benefits. So here's all of the oils that are very high in terpenes and the alcohol functional group. So sandalwood, right at the top of the list, I know that there's good amounts of sesquiterpenes, but now I also know that there's good amounts of sesquiterpene alcohols associated with that essential oil. And all alcohols primarily have similar function and activity. They're very calming. You know, we're going to say that about every single functional group we talk about. We're going to say they're calming, they're soothing, they're relaxing. That's one of the great mantras associated with essential oils. But in this case, they do a little bit more. They're calming to the tissues in that they help the tissues, especially if there's agitation within those tissues, to be relaxed and soothed. They have great cleansing properties. All oils that contain alcohols have great cleansing properties, both internally and externally. Great products that we can use on the skin, for example, for cleansing and purifying the skin. That's why when we talk about things like an active threat that's occurring within the body, or we have some type of an abrasion or a bug bite, generally some of the oils we recommend, like lavender, have a good amount of alcohols associated with them. They're uplifting and they're good for protecting and preserving good immune response within the body. Now, phenols is somewhat similar to an alcohol. It's an alcohol attached to a benzene ring. But phenols have a much stronger capability than what we typically see with an alcohol. You're familiar with the essential oils that we have that have phenols associated with them: oregano, thyme, and clove essential oil. Respectively, the phenols are strongly protective within the body. They have good antioxidant function, which means they can protect and help the body preserve the natural activity and function of your cells. But they also bring relief because of that context of the warming sensation that we feel. And even in the case of oregano, we talked about yesterday, beta-caryophyllene, we're saying that that has direct interaction with a CB2 receptor site. And so that then can be calming and soothing to tissues like within our joints or within our muscles. And once again, immune supporting to the body. We have another functional group that's called aldehydes, and aldehydes are important for a number of different reasons. Alcohols, phenols, and aldehydes nicely fit into the same category, and think of them as all things protective in the body. If we want to enhance our immune capability, think about an alcohol, a phenol, or an aldehyde. Now, it's good for environmental threats. It's really good. Aldehydes are really strong for circulatory support. I think a lot of times when I speak with people, and I'm very appreciative of that, by the way, but a lot of times when I speak with people and they ask me very direct questions, I know that they think there's just a ton of information rattling around in my mind. I hear people say sometimes, wouldn't you like to take Dr. Hill home and put him in your pocket? That might not be as good of an experience as what you think. Do you want to know how I cycle through when you speak to me and when you ask me questions? Yes, I do. I have decades of clinical experience, and I'm indeed very grateful for that. It drives so much of what I believe and what I feel about essential oils, but the process that I actually go through is not as detailed or as beyond what you think you yourself could personally do. I think through circumstance of how does a phenol work? What other classes of compounds fit into that? Aldehydes would also be a good option. And depending on what you're looking at and the variabilities between some of them, committing some of this basic and simple information that yes, while an aldehyde and an alcohol and a phenol all fit into this same category of being sustaining to the body and its immune capability. Isn't it interesting that alcohols are very soothing and very calming to the body and very cleansing to the body? Isn't it neat that when we look at phenols are very directed and very targeted and very focused in the body in being protective? And isn't it interesting that when we look at aldehydes that we have some of the same thing, but it's a much broader spectrum and we can be supportive of additional systems like cardiovascular or the digestive system. But yes, once again, working within the immune capability of the body. This is why I like the chemistry. This is why I feel like if you just commit some basic things to memory and learn more about the chemistry, you yourself can overcome a number of obstacles. One of the biggest obstacles that we have is that we always feel like we know exactly what to do, and if it doesn't work, we abandon the process. Learning how to categorize essential oils gives you the option of having multiple oils you can choose from, and I'll teach you how to do that in just a minute. This is just a short thing I wanted to put together for you. This is some of the things that over the years I have liked to use for each one of the things to create proper joint function and comfort. 2 drops of oregano, 2 drops of lemongrass. Now I would dilute that. And I would dilute that so that it can hold directly into the tissues that we would talk about. I love using frankincense. You've heard me say it a million times, when in doubt, get your frankincense out. You can really put frankincense with almost anything, and it will enhance the processes for you and make them much better. But in this case, using frankincense, marjoram, and wintergreen is a good option for you, or even clove and frankincense. And I, a lot of times, will use that as a mouth preparation for individuals. So just some simple ways that you can take some of the information we just talked about and use them very specifically. Let's talk just about a couple of more functional groups. Let's talk about ketones. Now, once again, calming and soothing, but in this case, specifically with the tissues, the skin of the body. Ketones are really good for skin health, but they're also very supportive of the deeper layers of the tissues of the body, and so think of them as having a global aspect that way. A lot of times you'll see oils like peppermint mixed in with different preparations that are meant to be for the skin, and because it's soothing and it does stimulate proper activity and function there. Now, really good for respiratory conditions as well. You can take and you can look at something like an aldehyde and combine it with a ketone, and you would have an excellent opportunity for good respiratory support. So you can maybe take even a phenol, maybe it's thyme oil and peppermint, or clove and peppermint, or maybe it's going to be rosemary mixed with one of those essential oils, and you can have very profound outcomes associated with that. Also really good for digestive issues we see with ketones. Now I want to talk a little bit about esters. Esters happens to be one of my favorite categories, and generally because some of the oils that we see within this category are profoundly esters and esters only. So birch and wintergreen, for example, almost 98, 99% pure methyl salicylate. That means that we have very focused. Remember last year we talked a little bit about chemical diversity, but then we also talked about having very focused outcomes where we don't have as much diversity within an essential oil. And I like the esters because our top 3 essential oils in this category, birch, wintergreen, and the oil that we talked about yesterday, Roman chamomile, all have high amounts of esters available within them. Esters, think of all things relaxing and soothing in the body. A lot of times we experience either through heavy physical activity, even through that time of the month for our ladies who are here, we can have a lot of muscle cramping and spasm, and we can have a lot of outcomes that are part of the normal process, but can be very uncomfortable and unpleasant. And one of the things that I like about esters is that as you apply the essential oils topically, there is this great soothing benefit and relief that can come from it. So feel free to use those in any of that capacity and context. So the last one I'm going to share with you is oxides. Now, oxides, these are essential oils. Just think all things respiratory for oxides. But again, just like we saw with the aldehydes, and we saw with the phenols, and we saw with the alcohols, very cleansing to the environment. Mixing one of these essential oils, for example, with a citrus oil, gives you a beautiful aroma, but it becomes very powerful and really clarifying for the respiratory system. That's its primary benefit that we typically see. Now, why would I take some time and explain this context to you? About 3 years ago, I was in my office working one day, and I was, to be honest with you, a little bit frustrated because I was trying to, at the time, teach a class that I called A to Z, which is an 8-hour class where I do my best to start with the A's and end up in the Z's of the essential oils. But in reality, I usually kind of go from A to B-ish, if we're lucky, in 8 hours. And so I was a little bit frustrated because I wanted individuals to begin to be able to expand their capacity. And so at that time, we developed what we would call the oil chemistry wheel. Now, I know you're familiar with this. Now, I want you to take everything that I just shared with you, and I want you now to look at this wheel and think of it a little bit differently. I think this was ingenious. What we did was I pulled my staff together, and they're miracle workers, by the way. I give them full credit for helping us to bring this together. On the one side, you have monoterpenes. The backbone is monoterpenes. Every single oil that's listed there is a monoterpene, and some of them are monoterpenoids. On the backside of that, as you see listed here, we have sesquiterpenes. Every oil listed there is a sesquiterpene essential oil, and it has its functional group attached or associated with it. So let me walk you through how you would use this chart and then bring it to a conclusion. So here's a good example. This is patchouli essential oil. And you can see, you can look here that patchouli, I know that it's a sesquiterpene that's been identified there in the back. And what do I know about sesquiterpenes? Oh, I know sesquiterpenes have great metabolic potential, so I can have multiples of effects associated from sesquiterpenes. I learned that at convention. And I also know that they're long-lasting. And so I can have long penetrating effects associated from any of the oils I see on the sesquiterpene side of the chart. Now, if I look at it, I can see ketones and alcohols, and that they're all right there and they're listed for you. And I can look at that and I can see that, well, patchouli is in the alcohol category, which is the ring next to sesquiterpenes, and then patchouli. And then I can see what it possibly does for me. And I can look that it's very stabilizing to the body, but I know that it's an alcohol. And what do I know about alcohols? I know that alcohols are soothing to the body. I know they're clarifying to the body. And I know that they're cleansing to the body. It's what we just discussed and learned. Now, you might look at that and say, well, that's really great. I mean, I got patchouli all in there as the alcohol, and I see that it's patchouli oil. But what does that mean? Why is this chart functional? Because it's now not just patchouli that you can use. What if I use patchouli and that is not exactly what I'm looking for? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other essential oils, all in that same category, that now I can choose from. And I believe that every single one of them may not have the exact outcome, but they will have similar qualities and characteristics, and it may be just exactly what I need. We can do the same thing with monoterpenes. Here's a good example. We see monoterpenes. We know that monoterpenes, in this case, phenols and aldehydes, we see are protecting, and I can see that just by following the ring from the inside all the way to the outside. And I can look at oregano, and I see that oregano has high amounts of carvacrol. I go to the next ring, I know that that's a phenol, and it's protective to the body. But it's not just oregano. If I use oregano and it doesn't work, it's not just thyme or clove. I can go to thyme, clove, cilantro, cumin, cassia, cinnamon, and I can work my way through that whole ring, and all of a sudden I have a lot of oils I can choose from. How often do you speak with somebody and they say, "Oh, I don't like that oil," or "That's not my favorite," or "I won't use that," or "I can't use that"? And how often do you have the experience where you feel lost? I don't know what else to tell you because that's what works for me. You have access to be able to exercise your knowledge about chemistry with little effort. Now, where do you find this? This is available for all of you. You can just go to the doTERRA page, you go to the science blog, and it's right there, and it's downloadable, and it's right there for you. How would you like it if we created a little booklet, and in that booklet had all of the description of the chemistry that we just went through, as well as this wheel? Would you like that? Now, just last week, I met with some of the members who work with me on my team, and they're already in process with that. So look for that to come very quickly, and that'll be something that will be a great tool for you so that you can improve and increase your arsenal. Now, in the time I have left, let me go through another process with you really quickly. I thought this was genius when we introduced this a number of years ago. That originally, at the top of that, under healthcare, that didn't say doTERRA Healthcare. That said something different, but we're changing the pyramid. It now says doTERRA Healthcare. And then we have this model of self-care, and that's where we operate. We operate within that realm, and we're combining both of those, and that should just now, from this point ever forward, just say healthcare and know that it's not a separate thing. That having been said, it's the bottom of the pyramid, and let me walk you through on a daily basis what it is that we would do to take advantage of each of those steps. We created it that way. This was the genius of Rob Young. It was created that way to kind of guide you to that process of what we do to manage our health in the most efficient way that we possibly can. And you know that in doTERRA, we've never said that that's exclusive of modern healthcare and medicine. We're looking for a blending of those two, but you can enhance the process if you understand the process on a daily basis. So let's start at the bottom and work our way to the top real quickly. So let me begin with eating right. Now, to me, this is pretty straightforward. Yes, we should improve our diet, but I'm going to talk about daily nutrition instead. Now, I'm not going to talk about the lifelong vitality, because tomorrow, I believe, you're going to have the good privilege of hearing from Dr. Leverins, who is going to talk with you a lot about lifelong vitality. So know that there's some good information coming on that. So instead, let me focus on PB Assist and Terrazyme just real quickly. Now, first off, you need PB Assist. The criticism of, even though I see it on TV advertised all the time, if you just eat this yogurt, you're going to be happy and your wildest dreams will come true. The real challenge that's associated when we start talking about intestinal flora and when we start talking about taking a probiotic is delivery. One of the unique things about this product is we've solved the issue of delivery. We not only deliver to you all of those CFUs intact, all of that good biotica intact, we deliver it to you in multiples of fashions, including a prebiotic, so you get good, strong colonization. You need to understand that the area of your body that becomes damaged most readily, and it's because of the toxicity that we face and because of the poor diet that most of us have, is going to be our intestinal flora. It's more than just a barrier for you. There's now this wonderful research that's actually linking your gut and your brain together, and your gut and cardiovascular health. It's a foundational aspect of what it means to be happy and healthy, and you need to be sure that you do a probiotic every single day. Now, I wish I had time to go into great detail on all of these products. I don't. So let me move on just a little bit and remind you that it's not just for you. It's for the entire family. Now, equally, we would look at this and we would talk about enzymes. Let me just tell you real quickly the importance of enzymes and why we have Terrazyme. Everything that happens in your body, we identified a few minutes ago and said it's chemically driven. It's chemically induced within your body. But understand how that happens. It's not just interacting with a receptor site, it's interacting with enzymes as well. Vitamins and minerals are essential for your body to have good models of metabolism and end derivatives associated with that. What drives vitamin and mineral activity in your body is enzyme activity. And ironically, what drives enzyme activity in your body is vitamin and mineral activity. You need both. You don't just need lifelong vitality, you need lifelong vitality, and you also need Terrazyme. Now, Terrazyme is food enzymes. It's not metabolic enzymes. You need to drive metabolic enzymes, but because you cannot take them, your body has to produce them. One of the ways that we entice the body or give the body the freedom to be able to produce the amount of metabolic enzymes it needs is to ensure that you have enough digestive enzymes. Your cells can produce largely one or the other with efficiency. So I'm either going to produce digestive enzymes or I'm going to produce metabolic enzymes. Many times individuals will come to me and say, I'm doing these things, but I'm just not receiving a benefit. And without fail, I ask the question, do you do the Terrazyme? And the answer is always no. And you need to, because you take the metabolic pressure off the body when you do. And the cells are free to produce those metabolic enzymes which drive all other processes in concert with vitamins and minerals. So make it a habit to do that every single day. That's what we mean by eating right. Now let's talk about exercise. I'm not going to talk a lot about exercise. Well, I am just a minute. Well, no, I am. I can't help it. I've lost 30 pounds. And it's not because I have a man girdle on either. That's not why. This has been a great journey for me. I started at the beginning of the year. I am a horrible person for exercise, but I have found enjoyment in not going to Justin Harrison's house at 5 o'clock in the morning and have him punish me, which he invites me to do incessantly. I'm not coming, Justin. Stop asking. But what I do enjoy is things that elevate my heart rate. So riding bikes with my wife has turned out to be a really fun thing for me. Or going for walks or going for hikes. Exercise can be defined as anything that will increase your heart rate and your body's ability for metabolism. Learn how to do some forms of exercise. And then I put Deep Blue here because, frankly, we should start thinking about the essential oils not just after the fact, but maybe using them beforehand. And so let me give you just a quick insight into Deep Blue and why I say that. If we look at Deep Blue, and if we look at how it's been broken down, there's really three primary categories of function within Deep Blue. First, wintergreen, camphor, and peppermint. We like them because they're cooling to the tissues, but we like them also because they're very soothing. They're very comforting to the tissues. It's amazing how comfortable I am with the word comforting to the tissues. Blue tansy and blue chamomile, we talked about those yesterday. We talked about creating a normal, sustainable, appropriate inflammatory response in the body, and we had a lot of discussion yesterday about how blue tansy would help us to do that. And blue tansy and blue chamomile together makes that the perfect combination. And then lastly, for recovery and long-term support, we have helichrysum, which you all love as an essential oil, and osmanthus, which many of you aren't that familiar with, but here once again is a flower oil. And so very powerful combination. Now I thought I would take that and build on this just a little bit because our purpose here is to expand the process. And building on this, I would say that there are categories of essential oils that do this for you as a whole. So oils that fit into the wood category. Now I didn't just say resin oils, I said wood category. So an oil, whether it comes from a resin or it comes from the wood product itself, would fit into that category. Mint oils and spice oils, and I broke it down into warming, numbing, cooling, support for inflammatory responses in the body, and tissue recovery. And I've kind of highlighted where each one of those lie within that process. And once again, you've just expanded your repertoire where if you're trying to help yourself or someone you know, you have this ability now to choose from entire categories of essential oils and not be limited to just what you know or just what you're comfortable with. So I thought that would be interesting for you to see. Rest is pretty straightforward. There's not a lot to talk about with rest except for I define rest differently than how you might define it. You might define rest to mean, am I sleeping well at night? And that indeed is a part of what we mean by rest within that platform. But rest is resting your body in its full measure. That means I'm taking and reducing metabolic stress and metabolic load on my body. That means I'm controlling my emotions and the responses that I have when things feel very charged for me, or I'm upset, or I have feelings of anger and frustration. Those all have physical and chemical consequence in the body. And we need to learn how to control those, and we need to learn how to support the body in its ability to be able to function even under those circumstances of duress. So I've given you a big list here. Choose your favorite. Use them every single day in this capacity. My personal favorite, I will share with you, is going to be balance. Now I've broken balance down into two categories for you here again. Now we have wood oils, wood and resin oils, and then we have floral oils. You're kind of getting the idea of why we call this balance. It's a good balance between the chemistry, all of which collectively is going to be soothing, relaxing, but it is balancing to the body. It supports the central nervous system. It supports the emotional context of the body so that we have good, appropriate responses that are manageable as we go throughout the day. And then, of course, we do have for you the Serenity Complex, which we introduced last year. I hope you're loving that. I hope you're enjoying that because it is effective and it works. Now, best to use this, I think our directions would be that you take 2 capsules 30 minutes before you go to sleep. But I would add, learn to diffuse essential oils throughout the evening that are calming, soothing, and relaxing. Now, lastly, let me talk with you real quickly about toxicity. Just think lemon oils when it comes to toxicity. On a daily basis, we need to do lemon oils, or citrus oils. Now, part of the reason why, if we looked at the immune system, and we looked at all the functioning of the immune system, we would say that one of the limiting factors of the body's immune capability is the level of glutathione that we have present. Glutathione is critical because it supports not just the immune capability of the body, but it also supports all of the systems and organs that are responsible for cleansing in the body, like the liver, for example. Even the central nervous system has high susceptibility to damage if we don't have mechanisms in place for protection. Glutathione is a substantial part of the body's ability to do that. One of the things that we know about limonene, this monoterpene that's in essential oils, in specifically high amounts in the citrus oils, is that it is protective and helpful in those sequences for the body to be able to be sustained that way. Now, the last one is self-care. I'm going to move quickly. I'm out of time. I'm going to move very quickly. Frankincense and On Guard. Do you not just love frankincense in its entirety? I love everything about frankincense. Now, these are all the things that we're accustomed to with frankincense, but there's new and emerging research all of the time. And this, the first time I saw research that was similar to this was about 10 years ago. Not too long ago, I saw some additional research that was published about frankincense, and they made a very interesting statement in that research. And this statement alone, in my opinion, is one of the reasons why it's foundational to what we do on a daily basis. Listen to what they said. When the DNA code within a cell, within the cell's nucleus is altered, it seems frankincense supports the cell's ability to identify and determine what the right DNA code should be. Is that not remarkable? Go back to how we started today. Oils are biologically active. We know that oils are selective, and we know that oils have specific cell targets. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit just quickly about some of those compounds that we talked about earlier, the aldehydes, the alcohols, and the phenols. It's interesting, phenolics destroy membranes. So if there's a microbe that's under attack from a phenolic, it just literally punches a hole in the membrane and destroys whatever that organism is. Alcohols support immune cell function. And aldehydes inhibit communication, which is also an active part of how your body's defenses normally work. If I can block communication from one cell to another, then I greatly reduce the ability of that to perpetuate throughout my body and be damaging. So why On Guard? I know you heard a little bit about On Guard earlier, but look at what we have. We have monoterpenes, we have phenols, we have aldehydes, and we have alcohols. So if we were to sum it up, we would say this is what we're going to do every single day. Every day I'm going to use Lifelong Vitality, I'm going to use the Terrazyme, and I'm going to use the PB Assist. When I exercise, and I am going to start exercising, and if I do that, I'm going to use an oil like Deep Blue to help me be able to do that with greater ease. Rest and stress, we said, was not just about getting the proper amount of sleep, although we have the Serenity lineup for you that will help you to accomplish that very efficiently, but balance is an essential oil that you need to use every day. And then, of course, we talked about citrus, frankincense, and On Guard. Now, I know my time is limited, so bear with me for just one more moment. Nobody ever knows how to do it, so here's what you're going to do every single day, okay? We're going to get up in the morning. We're going to get up in the morning and you're going to put 2 to 3 drops on the bottom of your feet with Balance essential oil. You're going to put a couple of drops of frankincense under your tongue or put it in your water or take it in a capsule. You can put it on the bottom of your feet, but use frankincense every single morning. Take 1 PB Assist with breakfast and then Lifelong Vitality and Terrazyme with your morning meal. Afternoon, we're going to diffuse our favorite essential oil for mood management, for helping the body to be at rest. During the day, I'm going to diffuse whatever oil it is that I would like. I'm going to again take Lifelong Vitality and Terrazyme with my afternoon meal, and then I'm going to use citrus oil in my water throughout the day, or take citrus oil in a capsule if you would like to, but gain exposure of citrus oil throughout the day. In the evening, when I come home, I'm going to take Lifelong Vitality and Terrazyme again. And I'm going to diffuse On Guard or take a capsule if I feel like I need that sustainability and some type of an immune capability for the body. Now, let me make a point here as I go to this last slide, which is at bedtime. Diffuse your favorite oil for relaxation. Use the Serenity Soft Gel 30 minutes before sleep. And then apply Serenity or cedarwood, if you like, to the bottom of your feet for a complete, full, and restful night's sleep. Sleep is when the body repairs itself. It's important that you have good sleep. It could not be any simpler to use the essential oils in that capacity. If you do nothing else from this conference, from this convention, take away that piece of information. If you're struggling with the use of the essential oils, I'm going to tell you it's most likely because you don't have consistency and a framework or a foundation to work from. Now, sometimes people say, Dr. Hill, that's just too much. I cannot do that. I'm sorry. Because the alternative is not a good one. And like it or not, we're all going to be limited to our own biological terrain. Laura will love that comment. We're all going to be limited to our own biological terrain, which means we must do things every single day. And yes, while it's hard to sit down at an afternoon meal and get out your pills, and I got to take Lifelong Vitality, and I got to take Terrazyme because Dr. Hill told me to, trust me, it's much better than the alternative, which is pulling out a handful of other pills. Now, my time is really far gone and I need to be done, but let me introduce to you in closing, we have 2 brand new members on our physicians board this year, and I would like to take just a moment and introduce them to you appropriately. This is Dr. Andrew Goff. Now, I love Andrew. I found him to be a fascinating individual. He grew up in England, and he's currently practicing as a emergency room physician. In the community where he lives, he's known as the essential oil doctor. Everybody loves coming to him for his skill set. What you're going to find, and you will have a chance to hear from him this afternoon on our physicians panel, And what you're going to hear from Dr. Goff and learn from him very quickly is that he is a deeply passionate individual, not just about essential oils, but about patient care. And his wife Ruth is the same way. They're lovely people, and many of you know them, and it's a privilege for us to welcome them to our physicians board here at doTERRA. And then I'm happy to introduce Dr. Amy Wolfoff. Now, Dr. Amy I met her about 3 years ago, 3 years ago in Dallas, Texas, and we were able to start into multiples of conversations. She is a wonderful addition to what we're doing here at doTERRA. She's a board-certified dermatologist. If you look down at the bottom of her, it's interesting when you look at where she went to school, right? Did all of her graduate work and everything in Texas, and she's been very recognized that. But look at the bottom paragraph, and she's one of the top 3 rated dermatologists in Texas. She's Texas Super Doctors, Texas Rising Star, 2014 to 2017, top doctor in 2015, most compassionate doctor in 2013 through 2017. It just kind of goes on and on and on. And then at the bottom it says doTERRA Clinical Advisory Board. We're happy to have her be a part of that. But I think it's also going to say, and best looking physician on that panel. I think that's also what it's going to say. So we're happy to have them be a part of what we're doing. Let me just share with you one final thought before I end today, and it's a little bit thought-provoking for myself. As for many years now, I've had the great privilege of being involved in patient care. Yesterday, Dr. Riggs talked about the value of that. He is correct in every sense of the word. I have had cause to reflect quite often on, as you become a physician, you take what's known as the Hippocratic Oath, and there are lots of iterations of the Hippocratic Oath, all with the same general context and meaning. And I'd like to quote for you a condensed version today. And it goes something like this: I will remember that there is an art to medicine as well as a science. I will remember that warmth, compassion, and understanding may outweigh the surgeon's knife or the chemist's drug. I will remember that I do not treat a fever or chart a cancerous growth, but an individual whose family may be affected by the person's illness. I will work for prevention because prevention is preferable to cure. And if I do not violate this oath, may I enjoy life and art respected while I live and remembered affectionately thereafter. May I long experience the joy that comes from healing those who seek my help. My friends, if that's not a perfect descriptor of you, I don't know what is. You have a great mission to do. You have a great work to do. Let's do it together. Thank you.